The court is now in session for this afternoon, and we will hear the testimony of a witness with the pseudonym of 2 TCW 852. And before calling the witness into the courtroom, the trial chamber wishes to inform the parties and the public that on the 17th of February 2015, by email, the trial chamber will not conduct hearing on the 26th of February afternoon and on the 2nd of March 2015, so that the party have an opportunity to look at the new document proposed by the OCP, including 90 record of witness interview, including 1,600 and 1,400, and also in French, much more pages. The trial chamber found that the defense counsel and the lead co-lawyer for the civil party should be given more additional time so that they can look at those documents before proceed with the second phase of the hearing, the work sites. And the trial chamber will continue to hear witness 2 TCW 852 tomorrow due to his old age and his difficulty for traveling to the court and back to his residence next week. It is a little different from our scheduling order, and it is required that the trial chamber will conduct the hearing on the afternoon of the 25th of February, and the chamber will continue on the morning of the 3rd of March 2015, so that the party shall have sufficient time to look and study the newly posted documents. And on the 15th of February 2015, full day, and on the 3rd of March, we will conduct the hearing for one morning. The President, Sheikh Lawan, you may proceed.
Oui, merci, Monsieur.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In order to clarify the decision of the Chamber, because it may well be that some details were lost in translation, the Chamber will continue to hear the witness who is supposed to appear this afternoon up to tomorrow evening. Then we'll resume our hearings on the 3rd of March, only in the afternoon. So the morning of the 3rd of March will also be placed at the disposal of parties in order for them to be able to review the documents.
The President, thank you, Judge Lawange. Now we have a clear decision because our previous schedule was on the morning, but we keep only in the afternoon. and we will look at the request by the National Council of Mr. Kilsampon to have a forensic examination of the signature, and the Tri-Chamber would like you to submit a written request with a reasoning indicating clearly your ground and the purpose of your request. And court officer is now instructed to bring the witness to the witness stand before the chamber. The President, good afternoon, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Witness. Mr. President, my name is Pan Chen. President, thank you, Mr. Pan Chen. What is your date of birth? Can you tell the court? I was born in 1932. President, thank you. What is your current address? Answer. I am living in Odomyenche province. Question. What is your occupation currently? Answer. I am retired. I don't do anything. Questions. What is your parents' name, your mother and your father's name? My father is Lak Pan and my mother is Tum Chuan. President, thank you. What is your spouse's name and how many children do you have? Answer. My wife is Rod Sen. I have one child. President, thank you, Mr. Pan Chen. The greffier made an oral report that to your best knowledge, none of your father, mother, ascendants, children, or descendants, brothers, sister-in-laws, or wife is admitted as civil party in case 002. Is this information correct? Answer, yes, correct. Thank you. And the greffier also reported that you have taken an oath before you enter this court this afternoon. Is this correct? Respond, yes, correct. The chamber would like to inform you of your rights and obligations as a witness. Your rights as a witness in the proceedings before the chamber. You may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comment which may incriminate you. That is your right against self-incrimination. This means that you may refuse to provide your response or make any comment that could lead you to being prosecuted. Your obligation as a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comment to make those questions may incriminate you as the chamber has just informed you of the right as a witness. You must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, experienced, or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or the parties pose to you. Mr. Panchain, have you gave any interview or testimony to the investigator of the OCIJ in the past? If so, how many interviews and where you gave interview? Do you remember this? Respond, I gave 4 occasions of interview at An Long Wang at my current address. Question, do you remember when was it for each interview? Respond, 2 interviews in 2009 and in 2001 interview, and I don't remember another. Question, is it 2001 or 2011? Respond, 2011. President, thank you. And before you enter into the courtroom, have you read the minute of interview when you gave the interview to the investigators of the OCIJ to refresh your memory? Response, I have read, but due to my old age, I cannot remember everything. President, to the best of your memory and your knowledge, those record of witness interview, their contents are reflecting your statement, your answer that you gave during those interviews to the investigators. Respond, yes, there were many contents are correct, but some of them are incorrect. President, thank you, Mr. Witness. You have made a request for the duty counsel during your testimony before the chamber. Previously, the witness and expert support unit assigned Mr. Muang Savan as your duty counsel, and he is not available today, and the WESU assigned Mr. Duc Paris as your duty counsel for this afternoon when you give testimony to the chamber. The Trial Chamber would now like to hand the floor to the OCP to put question to the witness under Internal Rule 91B, and the OCP and the civil party lead co-lawyers will have one session this afternoon plus another session of tomorrow. Yes, now you may have the floor, prosecutor. Prosecutor, Your Honors, parties and the public, and good afternoon, witness. My name is Riratanak. I am the National Co-Prosecutor of the ECCC. I will ask you questions as regards the Krang Tachan Security Center. And my first question for you is that before the 17th of April 1975, where did you live? Response: before the 17th April 1975, I was living in Chomka Kausu Chup. It's a Chup rubber plantation. Question: before you went to work at Chup rubber plantation, what was your position before that? Response: I was the supervisor of worker at the rubber plantation. Question: I would like to ask you the time before you went to work in Chup rubber plantation, and what did you do? Where were you then? The President, Mr. Panchen, please wait a moment so that you can give the gap in time for the interpretation to render your response so that we can have a good record for the court. You should wait until the microphone is activated. You can see the red line on the microphone. Witness, I'm sorry, I would like to repeat. Before that, I was living in Phnom Penh. Question: how long have you lived in Phnom Penh after 1975? Response: I was living in Phnom Penh during the 1950s. Question: if I am not mistaken, you were living in Phnom Penh all the way since the 1950s until 1975, and then you were assigned to work at the Chup rubber plantation. Is this correct? Answer: I left Phnom Penh in 1959 to work at the Chup rubber plantation. Question: did you ever live in Takao province before? Response: I was born in this province. I used to live in this province. Question: from 1950 through 1975, before you moved and worked in Chup rubber plantation, were you living in Takao province? Answer: yes, I did. Question, in what year? Answer, it was in 1970. Question, from 1970 until which year you were living in this province? Answer, from 1970 until 1973. Question, and what did you do after 1973 and where? Answer, in 1974 I moved to live in Kampong Speu province. Question, and later? Answer, later I was living in Samrao of Kampong Speu. Prosecutor, I would like you to indicate the year and place where you were living. Response, in 1974, 1975, I was still living in Kampong Speu province. Question, so during 1970 until 1973, the time when you were living in Takai province, what did you do? Could you briefly describe your main roles and duty? Respond, I used to be a village chief and also a commune chief. Prosecutor, could you please be specific on village chief of what village and commune chief of what commune, which year? Respond, from 1970, I was a chief of Pong Tek Khang Tabong village in Kus commune, and 72 I was the chief of Kus commune. Question, how long have you been a chief of the commune from 72 until what year? Answer, from 1972 until mid-1973, I was working for the refugee committee who to work with the refugee who came from different area. And where was it? Respond, it was somewhere in Tram Kok district. That people fled from a different direction in the province to Tram Kok. Question, as you were a commune chief, what were your duties and role at the time? Answer, as a commune chief, I was in charge of social activity and culture, and I was in charge of teaching. Question, what was your task? Answer, I gave teacher skill training at the villages, and I taught students and also taught villagers to do rice farming to promote their living condition. Question, in your interview to the OCIJ document E35522, EN in English 0042 62 83, ERN in Khmer 0041 44 84 and French ERN 0043 69 and 02. You said that as a commune chief. When there was a plan from the upper echelon, I was assigned to organize meeting at the different villages, and there was 33 communes, but not all the commune was organized. We organized only 10 commune. Were these activities performed by you at the time? Answer: yes. They were part of my activities. Question: can you recall the 10 villages of the Kus commune? So what are those 10 villages in Kus commune? I remember some of them. My work at that time was the village where there was a jungle, so that we can hide ourselves from the airplane bombing, so that we can convene meeting of village chief and people. Question: among the 10 villages, can you tell the court one or two or more than that to the court based on your memory? I am not expecting the 10 village in your memory, but any of the 10. Can you please tell the court? The first village was Ton Saung Ro village, Chotil Tkol village, Ta Lek Khang Lek village, Pong Tek Khang Tbong village, that's all I can recall. I forget the others. Question: in my quote on answer 12, I read it to you earlier in document E3/5522, English and 0042, 6 correction, Khmer AN 0041 44 82. You said that among those activities include my activity at Krang Tachan. Is this your correct answer? Response: yes, it is correct. Question: with regard to the organization of those villages, were all the villages still under the management of the previous commune, or were they belong or under any other separate management after that? Answer: since mid-1973, the district took control of those villages, the villages where I organized meeting. Question: were all the 10 villages controlled by the district, or only a number of a village among them? Response: it's only the place where we convene, when we would convene meeting. Co-prosecutor, let me repeat my question. Maybe you could not understand. So you organize a meeting at one place for each villages. Among them, Krang Tachan was also under your jurisdiction of organizing meeting. And later, the village was taken away from the commune, or I'm focusing on the place where your meeting was conducting. Was it still under the previous management or organization, or was it taken by any other entity? Response: it was only Krang Tachan was taken away from the existing structure in 1923. What was the purpose of taken from the old management? Response: it was taken for using as the security center. Question: what do you mean by security center? Can you use a more simpler words for our purpose now? Answer: it was said, it was called that a place for re-education for anyone who commit any wrongdoing. Question: could you please be more clearer? Re-education in your terms for those who have an offense, who committed an offense. You can use a more simpler word so that we can have a better understanding. Answer: it was perceived that people were taken to the place to re-educate them from doing any mistake in the future. Question: Krang Tachan previously was under the commune management and later was taken away, and who made decision to do that, and who took control after the previous commune? Response: the district office who did that. The decision was made at the district level for that purpose. Question: do you recall who was the chief of that security center? Respond: the person from the district. Question: do you recall the people in the management or in the management structure of Krang Tachan? Answer: yes, there were P, An, Ping, Cheng, John, question: who was the last? The last one was John. Question: were you ever being a chief at that place? Respond: no, never. Question: before the office of the co-investigating judge, under document E3/72, question and answer 51, you said that An became my deputy since the creation of Krang Tachan Center In 1972, the district sent An to work with me. I was from the commune, so I can enter the center at the time. End of quote. So what can you say to the court now that you said that An was assigned as your assistant or your deputy? What do you mean by your phrase? I have just quoted from your statement earlier. Respond. I would like to consult with my duty counsel before I respond this question. Witness. So I would like to continue my response. In my previous response, I'm not referring to Krang Tachan. I said that An and me used to work from the lower level when we were doing in the education, and the people at Krang Tachan were appointed by the district office. No commune or village made any decision to appoint people to work at Krang Tachan. People in the lower level has no authority to make such appointment. Co-prosecutor, I would like to mention this again. Maybe you don't understand well my question. In your previous response, based on my quote earlier, in document A3/72, you said that An was my deputy since the creation of the security center. So it is clear on the face of this document. You refer to Krang Tachan. And I would like you to explain to the court, if you said that An was my deputy, what do you mean by this phrase? I would like to consult with my duty counsel once again. President, you may proceed. witness, I would like to respond to the chamber that the cadres who work in different sections, no matter where they are work, they have to come for meeting twice a month. So the chief of the monthly meeting and the chairman to assign some people for that, and I was assigned to chair the monthly meeting when we organize a criticism and self-criticism meeting. Maybe I was confused referring to this activity, maybe on the minute of witness interview. I read yesterday, and after that some of the responses are not reflect or correct as I gave to the interviewer. Question. At that time, did you ever visited Krang Tachan or enter and then visit at any time, any point in time? Respond. When I was still in the commune, I supply food and rice to the center for the staff at that center. Question. My question is that have you ever visited or have you ever entered Krang Tachan for any purpose? Answer. Yes, I visited to supply, to give food supplies for the people there. Question. Based on your observation when you visited, how large was the center and how many buildings were there in that center? Respond. There were 2 buildings. The size was 5 meter by 6 meter long. Question. Could you please be specific? I will ask one question at a time. Based on your estimates or your your calculation of the size, so what was the size of the building? Are you talking about the perimeter of the compound? It was probably 100 meters by 100 meters. Question. How many buildings were there? There were 2 buildings. Question. Can you describe the appearance of the building? What was it built, constructed from, the location of each building as regard the compound or perimeter, and what are the kind of the buildings or category? Can you tell the court about that? Respond. Yes. And how many buildings and what they were constructed of? When I visited, there were 2 buildings, a wooden building with a tile roof. Co-prosecutor, I would like to remind you again that your response to the OCIJ on document A3/552, question and answer 22, you said that before Krang Thachan became the district entity, it was built in the jungle so that no one can approach, can see. And on the same document, before the district came to control, there was no fence. But later, when the district came to take control, barbed wire was built, and there was a wooden pole were used as part of the fence. And on the same document, you said that another building was built and barbed wire was built in a grid shape so that they can protect any prisoner from escape. This is the correct quote. This is my correct quote from your statement. Answer, yes, correct. Apart from the two long buildings for the prisoners, was there any other building for interrogation purpose? Response. After I left that place, I don't know anything because I left and stay far away from that place. Question. Talking about the prisoners, do you know what mistake or what offense were they committed before they were ending up in that security center? Respond, no, I don't know. Question. Before the co-investigating judges, you said in document A3/5522, question and answer 53, you said that the prisoners, most of them were accused of the associate of the other parties, other side. Before they said that they were KGB, CIA agent and White Khmer, and they were arrested and sent to Krang Thachan for detention. End of quote. Are these the responses you made earlier to the OCIJ? Respond, yes, it is true. But I told the interviewer, I told them that I know not related to Krang Thachan, but the arrest of other people, they were accused of the same accusation you have just mentioned. Question. In another case, I would like to discuss about the condition at the security center, and how many prisoners were there when you visited at that center?
Answer. There were only about 4 or 5 prisoners in 1973, and the most would be 10. Question. What was your observation regarding the condition of those prisoners? Were those prisoners chained? Answer. Sometimes they were, yes. Question. Can you be more specific? When would they be chained? Or were they also shackled or handcuffed? Can you provide further details? Answer. They were shackled. Question. Were the shackles used for all prisoners? Answer. For light offense prisoners, they were not shackled, but for serious offense prisoners, they were. Question. What were the shackles made of, or made from? Answer. They were made of metal. Question. Also on the condition of the prisoners, what was your observation? I mean, their physical condition and the food. Answer. During the brief period that I was there, since there were few prisoners, they were fed properly. I don't have any further question for this witness, and my international colleague will take the floor. Thank you. Mr. President, yes, the Deputy International Co-Prosecutor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. I want to go back to the issue of what your role was at Krang Tachan. I've read all of your statements, and I want to bring to your attention some statements from some other witnesses who have discussed you. A person named Chim, who was the former secretary of Tram Kak District, a man I believe you worked for and know very well, testified that you were the chief of Krang Tachan Security Office. This was at E3 4646, Khmer 00373-466, English 00380-134, French 00426-204. And Chim also testified, and this was an interview E3 5786 at answer 48, that during the time you were Krang Tachan chairman, you reported to him and to the district office, including about the number of prisoners and the transferring of prisoners to be put in the Krang Tachan Center. We've also heard in this trial from a former prisoner, Sai Sen, someone I believe you know. In his OCIJ statement, E319.1.24, answers 12 through 17, he testified, quote, "The chief of the prison was Tachen. It was called the Re-Education Office back then." Question, are you referring to the Krang Tachan Security Office? Answer, yes. Question, what was his position? Answer, he was chief of the Re-Education Office. Before holding that position, question, before holding that position, what did he do? Answer, he had been the chief of commune before he became the prison chief. End of quote. And I would remind you also of another statement that you made, yourself to OCIJ investigators. In your interview E372 at answer 58, the question was, before 1972, can it be said that you were the chief of Krang Tachan office and the chief of Kus Commune? Your answer was, yes, you can say so. At that time, I held two positions. Now, I understand that there may be an issue about whether you were officially appointed to any position. You had your title as commune chief. Having heard what your former superior, the district secretary, said, what a detainee said, would you agree with me that, in effect, you were the initial chief of this office, and you were perceived by the people who dealt with the prison to be the head of that office?
The statements you read out are mostly untrue.
What do you mean that they're mostly untrue?
It means that the CHIM, the district committee, never received any report from me on the Kantachan prison. I actually left in 1973 when they transformed it into a prison. So for that reason, how could I make a report to him after that, period? I think you can make your own judgment on this issue.
Let me turn to an issue regarding the number of prisoners who are at Krang Tachan. You've indicated that in 1973, when you visited the site, there were at most 10 prisoners. Let me read an excerpt from your OCIJ interview E3 5522, answer 55. You testified as follows. Question: how many prisoners were in the Krang Tachan office in 1974? I estimate that in 1974 there were not yet very many, but in 1974 there began to be many. Continuing down further. After I was gone, people say that lines of people were brought into the office. Question: when you say lines of people, what do you mean? Answer: they brought in lines, strings, meaning they were all tied up. End of quote. And in interview E3 5524, answers 42 through 45, you described how you returned to visit Krang Tachan in 1975 after you had left the security office. And you were asked how the prison had changed. And this is what you said, quote, "The site had not expanded, but there were more prisoners than before. There were probably hundreds of prisoners there." End of quote. Do you remember coming back to Krang Tachan in 1975? And can you tell us why you were there and what you observed?
I'd like to clarify this issue. In fact, stated to the investigator that I did not know everything about the upper level. Then the investigator asked me to tell him whatever I know or the number of prisoners. And then I told him that I could only tell them as an indirect information because I was not there. And in fact, I was asked repeatedly for details of the situation at the office. And as I told you, I had left and I only learned from the people on the many number of people who had been sent there. But as to the actual number, I did not know the details. And although I spoke about the number, I was not physically there. And that's what I told the investigator, as that's the second-hand information that I received. It's not the first-hand information. As I was far away from the office, I was transferred to Kampong Speu, to the west of Dam Rây Romil mountain. It means the distance was crossing 3 different provinces. And I was busy working there, clearing the land to build the dam for the people. And I would not know the details of what happened in that office.
I understand that you left Krang Tachan in 1973 and you went to a different location. Did you return to Kus Commune and make a visit to Krang Tachan in 1975?
My native village was near Ang Mitrai Pagoda. It took me 1 whole day to ride my bicycle to reach the village. And I did not stay there for long. I only asked some people around. And I did not know the actual details or any secret information or confidential information regarding the center there.
My question was, when you came back to your home village in 75, did you visit the Krang Tachan office?
I did not go to visit the area. I met briefly with people outside. I mean, those people who worked in there.
Your home village was Pong Tuk. How far was that from Krang Tachan?
The distance was about 10 kilometers.
Let me turn to another subject. In interview E3 5522, and understand that the questions I'm going to ask you now are about the period in 1973 where you've testified that you visited the Krang Tachan office and would go there to take supplies. So I'm asking you now about 1973. And in your OCIJ interview, you provided the following testimony at E3 5522, answers 35 to 36. Question: the interrogation site was inside the office compound. It was a small building at the south corner of the office. The interrogation building was open and was square, about 1.5 meters on each side, thatched roofed, and there were no walls. End of quote. My question to you is that an accurate description of the interrogation site that was built when Krang Tachan was converted from a meeting place to a security office in 1973?
Yes, that is correct.
And in your OCIJ interview E3-5524, at answers 29 through answer 30, you were read an excerpt from Sai Sen's interview, who was described to you just as a former detainee, as an excerpt in which he described how you were present during his interrogation. You admitted to the OCIJ investigators your presence during interrogations, and in the next answer, you gave the following testimony. Quote, question, do you remember if you ever participated in the interrogation of anyone? Answer, I did participate. As for my participation, that was only to listen, and on was the recorder. Then, in the next answers 32 to 35, you gave the following testimony about the interrogation methods that were used by the interrogators at Krang Tachan. Quote, P was the interrogator and on was the recorder. When P questioned and the prisoner did not respond, P was the person who used hot or cold methods to get the responses. P was the person who received the instructions to interrogate prisoners. Question, from whom did P receive instructions on interrogation methods? Answer, from the sector and the district. And then continuing in the next response, quote, cold methods were pleading, coaxing, trickery, ruses, when they were told that whenever they responded, they would not be tortured. Hot methods were when they were questioned but did not respond. Then they would be beaten or tortured. They were beaten with whips. End of quote. Do you confirm that you were present at interrogations and your description of how P and An conducted interrogations?
I'd like to clarify on a statement of Soi San. At that time, Soi San was a young boy. He was about 12 to 13 years old. When I returned from Kampong Speu, I saw him, and he used to live in the same commune where I lived. When I saw him, I had a pity on him, so I asked him to come to attend the cows or the water buffaloes, and for that reason, he survived. And in fact, Soi San would never be able to be in a position to make such a statement. Soi San's father was a former commune chief during the Sangkum Niyum. And that's the fact. Soi San was too young to know anything at the time. And he survived because of my pityness on him and because of my authority within the commune. President, thank you. It is appropriate to take a short break. We take a break now and resume at 3:05. Court officer, please arrange the waiting room for the witness, and have him return with the duty counsel at 3:05. The court is now in recess.